You got that written down?
Yeah.
All right. Hey everybody, welcome to another podcast episode with Long Range Tactics. Myself and Matt, happy to join you today. Of course, want to start off thanking a couple of our sponsors. I've seen some people out there kind of complaining that, hey, sponsors are getting talked about, but at the same time, we can't be doing this without them. And of course, without you guys listening. So we appreciate that. We want to talk real quick about Optics Planet. A lot of cool stuff on Optics Planet. I noticed there's been some negativity about Optics Planet through the interwebs, and I'm still trying to go to the bottom of it. They've been great with us. I know they've hired a new marketing team. I know they've done a lot of changes in the last few months. So hopefully that, you know, garners some changes that are going on there, but they've been really good for us. They're wanting us to, push a few brands really, and we're going to talk about those here in the near future and do some reviews on it. I'll get Matt some so he can do some reviews too. But I want to thank Optics Planet. We will have some codes for you guys. I am going to put them on the group, Long Range Tactics official group on Facebook. And then I'll try and get them up on the website. I need to find somebody that can do our website stuff. It's kind of one of those things. Do you want to hit MDT real quick, Matt?
Yeah, sure. So Modular Driven Technologies, Canada, and I've been affiliated with them for quite some time now. But aside from that, even before I was affiliated with them, I love their products. And man, talk about the cool things that we've been playing with lately. So SHOT Show, they unveiled the new ACC Premier Gen 2, which has been awesome. So I got one here, and you may look at it like, well, okay, so it's still an expensive chassis system. Well, it's not as expensive now. They've added some rigidity to the front end. It's a little bit shorter on the front end, so it takes 4 internal weights, simplified the back end, and what you get is an awesome setup. That's ready to go. You can add weights if you want, or like I'm going to run it in the NRL Hunter series. So it's light enough to do that as well with a lightweight barrel. So man, it's been awesome because I like chassis more than I like stocks, a lot more. So yeah, man, still it's all user customizable as far as length of pole and cheek height, and the grip is adjustable and everything. So it's just an awesome setup. I think it's starting right around 1,000. Should be available here pretty soon.
Yeah, MDT is one of those companies that you seem to see at every freaking match supporting. So we appreciate that. I know.
Yes, like
Yeah, that's
every
one of
single one.
yeah, that's one of those big ones. There's a lot of them that don't sponsor a damn thing, and I don't know how they keep getting away with. People still support them. I get it, but support those who support us. That's what I always say.
100%.
Um, when we were on the phone, you talked about, was it tolerance stacking, or was it like trying to figure out when something was wrong and go down a list of what was wrong? You want to tell us the story so we can kind of talk about
Yeah, man. So the background on this is some match director. So I help run a third Saturday of the month here in Las Vegas is bolt gun, and then that Sunday is a gas gun match. So the gas gun matches we shoot out to like 650. I shot my arc, my 6 arc, my large frame, my 6.5 Creed, and I really wanted a 223 setup, but I had a couple requirements, right? And so I bought a factory 223. And my major requirement is I needed heavy, and I want to run a can. So I have that Huxworks can that I throw on there. I actually really like that thing. The recoil and pulse on it is awesome. So like few requirements, and my major requirement is like I needed to push 75 grain Hornadies or 77 Match Kings and push them at a reasonable speed, not super slow, and in about an inch. Like just give me an inch gun, and I'm good. So I bought this rifle, and it has a 16-inch barrel that's not that heavy. Oh, because so most ARs don't come with heavy barrels. They're actually pretty light. What you get, the contours are nothing. I don't understand it. But I need to beat the crap out of this thing, and it's hot here in Vegas most of the year, so it needs to withstand some abuse. So I got that. It was a 16-inch gun. I took it out, and I couldn't even zero it. So it's
it.
a brand new build, brand new scope, brand new everything. I couldn't out of the box. I couldn't even zero it because it was just flinging rounds everywhere. I couldn't do it. So
Hmm.
I was like, okay, well, hadn't planned to stay with a 16-inch barrel anyway. I wanted a 20, wanted either 1 7/2 or 1 8 twist. That'll work fine, and I wanted it as heavy as it'll go. So basically, duplicate another 223 I had that the wife uses, and then my 6 arc. So I custom made an AR barrel from a popular barrel maker that shoot awesome. I have a number of their barrels. They shoot great. And then I got that barrel and I took it to the range and I couldn't zero that one. And I'm like, what is going on? So I started thinking like, well, it's a brand new scope. There may be something, because all things mechanical have issues every now and then. Like you
Mm-hmm.
see these new cars that are coming out with all these issues. Scopes and rifles and yada yada are no different. Anything mechanical can have failures. Like, okay,
Mm-hmm.
well, maybe it's a scope. Well, I kept the scope on there and I ordered another barrel from another manufacturer that I had years prior, and it just happened to be like $220 shipped for a 20-inch 1-8 super heavy contour. Like, should have probably just done this from the start. Bedded that one in the receiver, took it out, and it just stacked rounds. Stacked rounds. I'm like, okay, well, the first two barrels that I got were lemons, just absolute lemons. And then this third one, and I guessed a load with 75 grain Hornadies, and I shot Sunday, and I cleaned up on Sunday on the gas gun match. Like, I smoked it, and that thing was just awesome and super fun. But this has been about a month in the making now of going back and forth and wasting time and gas and projectiles and powder and time that I've had to take away from doing other things I want to do, tearing apart this damn rifle and putting it back together to get something that I reasonably met my expectations. I wasn't asking for half-inch gun, which I think is kind of nearly impossible with gas guns, but I just wanted something that was consistent enough that I could go shoot gas gun targets out to 650, and away we go. Like, that's all I wanted, is I want to shoot suppressed and have fun and shoot with the homies. Like, that is literally it. I'm not asking for
Mm-hmm.
the world. So I went, so here's what I didn't want to do. I didn't want to go down the rabbit hole like people do trying to diagnose things. I wanted to start with what I thought it was first. And I thought it was a barrel issue. I didn't
Mm-hmm.
want to go chasing anything else and then until I ruled out the one thing. And then you can go, because if you try to rule out two things at once, you may cause more problems or you might waste your time or money. So, man, and then I will tell you that the $50 bore scope hooked to my phone did save me quite a bit of hassle with the first two
Mm-hmm.
barrels,
Yep.
because the advice. So I posted, some stories about what was going on, because people are interested in this sort of thing online, and the response that I got from the first one and the second barrel was, some of it was blaming me. I was like,
Oh, like you don't know how to shoot type thing? Is that what you're saying?
yeah, right.
Yeah.
And this one guy's like, well, you don't, how can't we rule out the shooter? I said, all right, hold on here. Here's the groups that I shot right next to it with my bolt gun and my other large frame 6.5 that shoot. Both were, this large frame 6.5 was about 3/4 minute for 5 rounds, and my bolt gun was. Oh, you saw the groups I sent them to you, and I posted them. The straight jack barrels, the 6 GT and the 6.5 Creed, they were both just stacking rounds like little 1/4 inch groups. Like,
Mhm.
it's clearly not me, man. Like, I shoot, I don't know, 10,000 rounds a year
Yeah.
conservatively.
Yep.
So anyway, it was just great, and like I posted today, I appreciate everyone's comments and trying to offer me explanations. I didn't really need an explanation. I already was going down the path of fixing this, right? And I know I had to spend a little bit of money. That whatever, I'll make more. But people got notions, and I don't know where they got some of these things from, that either I was doing wrong, or did you try this? Did you try this? Did you try this? And like, no, I'm not just going to go try 100 things to try to figure this out. So, I mean, I had
Right.
everything from, did you try factory ammo? Of course I tried factory ammo. Always bring a box of fat. Sometimes, like, I've seen sizing dies or seating dies mess with bullets and cause issues. I've seen it. You've probably seen it too.
Mhm.
And it was just things like that. Or like, what were you doing with your bipod? How hard were you gripping it? Like, all this stuff. I'm like, come on, man. Like, I've been around a minute. So I just, the amount of messages and phone calls and comments and stuff got to be kind of ridiculous. So,
Well, let's break this down for a minute because I get asked this a lot. Like, hey, I just took my new rifle out. It's not shooting. And usually one of the first things I ask, okay, when you shoot, are you shooting a horizontal group? Are you shooting a circular group? Or you just shooting all over the freaking place? Like, I mean, that's one of the first questions that I ask somebody when they're having issues with their rifle and they're shooting it, because that will tell me a lot just of the group size and the group. If it's shooting all over the freaking place, A lot of times it's a scope, or one of your screws is loose on your action. If it's shooting vertical, usually that tells me something. If it's shooting, a circle, something's moving there. So once you kind of break that portion of it down, then you can go back into the rifle. Now you were shooting like all over the damn paper, right?
Yeah, it was ridiculous. Yeah, there was the thing is there was no consistency anywhere. So I was like, okay, either there's a barrel issue or a scope issue. Like
Mm-hmm.
that was my first, because everything else I checked on everything was torqued and everything before I went out there. I always had the fix it sticks with me with the torque limiters.
Mm-hmm.
I just real quick check everything that's involved, make sure everything's good. And I did have a gas gun years ago. The barrel nut was loose upon arrival to me.
Mm-hmm.
And so that barrel was dancing around in the receiver, and I didn't know. So, but that wasn't the case because I did end up checking that on the new barrel, the second barrel. So I ruled that out, and the scope, I rolled with it because it was already on the rifle, and I said I can't rule it out yet. I'll wait because if the third barrel does this, okay, I'll change out scopes, and then we'll see what's going on with that. And I've had to do that in the past years past because either I've broken scopes. I'm one of those
Mm-hmm.
guys that like, hey, I dropped a rifle and I broke a scope. I broke a scope, and sometimes you don't know it,
Yep.
or sometimes you just get a bad scope that's got a bad erector in it. These things happen, and if you ever seen how a scope's made, it's a very intricate piece of machinery.
Mm-hmm.
So it doesn't take much. So and that's another tangent we can go down to is optics, which is
Most of them don't get tested like Night Force, beat the hell out of their optics. But
yeah.
yeah,
I'm not gonna. I don't need to go that far.
no, no, but it happens. And I mean, that's the thing is, a lot of the SIGs that we've seen lately, people can't get them to shoot. It's because the damn barrel nuts aren't even tightened on them, which is kind of funny. And I know
hmm
you're going to laugh about them, but that
Yeah.
is one of those things. Everybody trusts that when you get a rifle, that everything's perfect. You don't have to go through it. And I'm glad you brought up that one point of the fix it sticks. Like you've got to have something in your kit that you can. I don't know how many times I've seen people lose tons of time and money because all they never torqued anything and
hmm
shit's moving on
Or
their
their
scope.
scope's loose.
Yeah, their scope's moving back and forth. Like you can grab their scope, move it
Yeah,
back
I
and
don't know
forth.
how many scopes I've done that. You like, okay, I watched this scope go bark on their
Mm,
rails, and you just go over like, hey, check this out, click, 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 click. It's like, hey man,
set it to
tighten
the
this up.
front,
Yep,
torque.
tight,
Done.
torque it,
Yep.
easy.
But it's amazing how many people are like, I'm not going to invest in that. All right, well, go invest in a shit ton of ammo, try to figure out what it is.
Mhm.
And by that time, you could have bought a really nice fix a sticks kit and you would have been set. That's one of those things. So,
I had a guy try to sell me a rifle a while back, and he said he couldn't get this rifle to shoot. He just want to get rid of it. Okay, let me check out your rifle, man. Action screws were dead loose, like to the point like I think there was probably half a thread engagement for both action screws.
hmm.
Because I took the barrel and the stock and I went click, 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 click. I was like, that was the first thing. I didn't have a scope on. I was like, okay, let me just check if the click, 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 click. I'm like, bro, you're telling me that it doesn't shoot. I mean, it's not even torqued to the stock. Let's try this first before you get rid of this rifle. Sure enough, what do you know?
I
The
did
thing
that.
shot those expectations.
I did a video on that four fix of sticks a while back. So I loosened both the screws, tilted it up so that the recoil lug was sitting flush, and then retorqued it so that I know that
Yeah,
lug engagement's perfect. And it's amazing to me how many people don't get it or understand that because there is movement unless you bet it. If you bet it, you know what you're doing. There shouldn't be any movement in there. You just torque them down and
right.
you go. But most people don't realize that you've got to have that seated or you're going to have movement no matter what you do. Um, so here, let's kind of break this down a little bit. Before I go to the range, or before I even go out for the New Year hunting, a lot of times what I'll do is I'll actually take the scope off and set it aside because I don't use cheap ass rings.
hmm
Most of the time I can retorque the rings and they're right back within a few tenths of where I need to be. So the first thing is I check if I don't have an integral rail. I check all my screws. I make sure everything's torqued. They're Loctited. That's one of the worst things, especially if hunting, you got shit bouncing around, your rail comes loose. And that's why most of my hunting rifles now have integral everything because
Yep.
that just gets
Me
rid
too.
of that question of shit coming loose. But, I've got 700s and stuff that I've had forever. And that's one of those things I want to check. again, going back to, are you going to go to the range and spend a whole lot of money and you can't sight it in, you can't figure it out, go through that process now. So that's the first thing I check is usually you can either go from, in my opinion, you can go from bottom to top or
Yep.
top to bottom. So I usually go from top to bottom, take that off, torque it. Now, bottom to top would be your bottom metal screws and then
Yep.
up. But I take it off the top, so remove that, check my rail, put my scope back, check my eye relief, make sure my scope rings are torqued correctly to the spec, make sure my rings are torqued to the rail correctly. Now everybody's like, well, where do I get those specs? Fix It Sticks does have a really cool thing on their website where you can go and see the different torque specs. They put it together, but give your company a call, call Loophole, call Vortex, call whoever you've got, and torque it correctly. um and then, going down, then I torque my action screws. Now, let me ask you this: how do you torque your action screws?
So I hold the barrel chassis on it, so the front lug makes contact to the front lug area in the chassis, and then
Mhm.
I take the front one, and presuming these are run down kind of loose, I just barely snug, and then I do the same to the back, barely snug, and then 65, 65, 65, 65. So I torque each twice, and then I'm
Mhm.
good.
Now, here's something that a lot of people don't think about. Now, a lot of these hung actions don't have one piece rails. So if you do
Good.
65 and 65s, you're actually going to bend that action
Yep, you
if
will.
it's not bedded correctly. So what I do is I do the same thing you're doing,
Increments.
65 in the front, and I do 35 to 45 in the back,
Hmm.
because then that doesn't give me any of that play in. And if I'm shooting and it shoots fine, great. If I need to torque it a little bit more, I can. But I this is how I do it. You guys listening can do it however you want. Matt does it, of course, the way Matt does it. But you have to understand, you're also, when you're torquing that eye level, you're looking at that action. You're seeing what's moving. You're looking at your barrel. You're looking at everything and how it moves.
Yeah,
If you're using like a full one piece, like you do on your, because you're shooting in what action
I
you
got
shoot?
Lone Peak Fusions,
Lone
and it's
Peak.
all solid hunk of metal.
Yeah. So you don't
They
have
don't
it,
flex.
yeah. So you get into like the Falcor LW7s that have a two piece. You get into the Kelby's Nanooks. You get into something that has two piece. Then you can start betting. You can start running into issues with it unless it's bedded. If it's bedded, then it's fine. In a lot of chassis, you probably won't have. But I've heard a lot of people lately that skim bedding chassis is the way to go. I mean, that's totally up to you.
I've skim
So,
bedded a bunch of chassis.
mhm.
I just yeah. Anytime you can take stress out of it. So I don't know if you've seen this too on the same topic. Lots of factory stocks too. You torque them, and you can actually watch the action bend.
Mhm.
I mean, the worst ones I ever saw for this are Savages, and you torque them, and the action would actually bind. And if you tried to torque them to their spec without it being vetted, because they used, the pillars would drop in the plastic, and then it would start, flexing the action. You could run the bolt and feel the difference in the bolt, how the bolt would run. You loosen up those screws, and the bolt would slide like super nice, and then you torque it down, and it would bind. If you
Mhm.
ever feel that, stop what you're doing because you're just stressing that action. And yes, it is possible. You're like, oh, it's a steel tube. Like, yeah, but there's actually not much material there. You can do some damage to that thing.
Yeah, and that the same thing with the Tikas. I mean, we've seen so many guys like, "Hey, I want you to replace the the barrel on my Tika." And Nick, we just did a video the other day that says, "Hey, the first time, let us remove it because a lot of people
Yep.
will tweak their actions. Guess what? Once your Tika, your Savage, or those cheaper actions are tweaked, there's no getting them back. You're
Mm.
screwed. You're never going to shoot that again because your back's not in line with the front. Your scope's not going to line up. Everything's dicked. So if you're gonna, yeah, everybody's like, "Oh yeah, get a Tika. They're easy. They are easy as long as the first time you take them off, it's done correctly." Because to set headspace on a Tika, they torque it into headspace. So some of them are, 30 foot
Yeah.
pounds. Some of them are 140 foot pounds.
Yep.
And you start trying to grab a hold of that freaking action and take that thing off, you tweak your action and no more.
I bent years ago removing a Howard barrel. I bent one pretty good because of
Hmm.
how torqued it was, and put a raceway one in there. I missed the lugs, went like that, and I actually twisted the whole back end of the action.
Nah, no more, no good, no more, no shoot.
No, it was done. It was trash. Like, all right, well, go buy another one.
Yeah, that's the crappy part. But this is just one of those little things that you guys can take 10 minutes, 15 minutes, go through, and it'll save you hours at the range. I was at the range, I don't know, it was 2 years ago. This poor kid was shooting at 100, couldn't hit the paper for shit. Now, here's another thing that I want to tell you. Shooting at 25 to get on paper or 50 yards, dude, I'm never going to laugh at you because at least if you cannot bore sight correctly, 25 or 55 will at least get you on paper to 100 and then you can follow it. But this kid, I shit you not, spent 3 boxes of freaking rounds of ammo trying to shoot at this 100-yard target, couldn't hit it for nothing. And I'm
Yeah.
like, I'm just one of the, I don't like to go to the public ranges anymore, but I walked over. I try not to be that know it all guy, but I'm like, dude, let me help you. Let's figure this out. Went to 100. Everything was moving in the poor rifle. Dude, this would have saved you 3 boxes of ammo. And I think he was there for 2 or 3 hours trying to figure this out. Here's one thing: get good at freaking bore sighting. That's huge. It's not that hard to do, and maybe we need to do some instructional videos on this, Matt. But um, that's one of those things that take your time, 25 or 50 yards, get it on paper, get it close, and then at least you'll be up and down 100. If you can get it your elevation right or your windage right, it'll just be elevation at 100, right?
Yep.
So that's one of those big things. Everybody just gets in such a hurry. They get excited, they get a new rifle, or they're going into hunting season and they're like, shit, I didn't get ready in time. That's happened to me. It's happened to everybody. But spending that freaking time dialing in your rifle the right way and making sure everything's because nothing is worse than getting out on the range or on a hunt and stuff starts coming loose too. And that's
Hmm.
why I say do this every time, every rifle. Take the scope off, torque everything correctly. If it's even a little bit loose, take that freaking screw out, re-Loctite it, reset it, torque it, and then you're good. And then those questions, because we've talked about this time and time again of your brain. If you're not confident with your rifle and you're not proficient with a rifle, you're not going to be confident on the range, right?
Nope.
What else you got to put with a stacking part?
Uh, so back to the gas gun thing. I bed the barrels into the receivers, which is like a special Loctite, and then I do that. There's a whole process for it. I actually read quite a bit on how to do that, and that actually helps things quite a bit because if you play with enough upper receivers and barrels, you'll have some that are kind of like what they call thermal fit. You got to
Mhm.
heat it up, and then it'll go in, and then it'll kind of contract back on it. But some have so much slop. It's ridiculous. That factory barrel in that rifle, like it had so much slop, and you could jiggle it. And then the second barrel was a lot tighter, but still need to be bedded. And then the third barrel was kind of in between the two, and but bedding took it out of it. So and then with bolt guns too, you have and I'm never gonna knock anybody for betting anything ever because if something's bedded correctly, then it's worth its weight for sure.
Mhm.
But there's people that don't know how to bed things and they just make matters worse. So they use way too much compound or just don't understand that, or they don't let it cure long enough and the bedding is just chunking off. It's one of my favorite things. Or use proper breading epoxies.
Mhm.
But I'm sure you've seen that. But if done properly, those you're taking away those all of those tolerances and you're making them mate correctly. So I'm a big proponent of it, especially stocks, man. If it's not, there's a lot of stock manufacturers that use pillars, and I'm not a big fan of pillar bedded. I don't think that's a solution. I still think it needs to be actually bedded. But
Mhm.
a lot of CNC stuff is pretty neat. And I think that's why Kyle John over there at Foundation, they do a lot of CNC machining to the particular brand of action, which is
Right.
I think is pretty neat.
Yeah, because they all have different points to where they touch the action and
Yeah.
everything. A Kelbley's is different than a Falcor or an Impact, or they're all a little bit different, which really sets that stuff apart. But yeah, I think bedding anything like we even bed mini chassis a lot of the time because you
Yeah.
just take any movement out of that and we just do a real quick skim bed. A lot of people are doing it in chassis, but yeah, to your point, man, if you don't know what the hell you're doing, I get that you can watch a thing on YouTube, but you're going down that road again. If you're not super confident with it, you're gonna add some issues that you're gonna
Yep.
have. Now, 1022s are the same way. We sell a lot of those the Asthma 1022s, and they're the same way. They're thermal fit, or they're super
Yeah.
super freaking tight to get them together, and I've got to beat on them a little bit or heat them up, or um,
Yep.
there's a lot of that. But yeah, the AR game, it amazes me how many people are just building their own ARs now, and they don't get that there is a huge, but like bolt actions is one thing, but ARs have a whole nother tolerance thing depending on what
Yep.
manufacturer you go with. Some are like you said, like a banana in a hallway, and others are so
Yep.
freaking tight you can't get them together. How was your Seekins? I know you just rebuild it, but you had to go through a few things and figure out how did you go down your path of adjusting your Seekins rifle to get the outcome that you wanted.
And that was all just barrels, man. I mean, so, and you can attest to this, man. All rifles are not going to be accurate unless they have a good barrel with a
Oh
straight
yeah.
chamber.
Hmm.
That's like that is the start. So lots of people with gas guns, they start and they buy everything else, and then they skimp on the barrel, or they bought something that's not going to fit their needs because it was cheap or whatever. And it's like, no, no, buy a good barrel first. Like that's what you should be after, good barrel, and then
Hmm.
build around it.
Hmm.
And I've tried to help a lot of people down that path of like worry about the barrel first. Don't
Hmm.
skimp on that part. That's super expensive because if you got a bad barrel, it's never going to shoot better, ever.
That's usually one of the first things I buy. I'm like, okay, if I got money set aside, the barrel, I'm gonna save up my money and buy the barrel, and then I'll go down my other stuff. That's how I do it, but I
Yeah,
maybe do it different. But yeah,
but yeah, man. I've got a bunch of gas guns now that shoot really well to choose from, but I think I'm gonna stick with 223 for a while.
I
And
love the series.
yeah, and I've got a nice flat of Hornady 75 grain Boattail hollow points that are just gonna be put into a bunch of steel. So
That's the way to go. I'm shooting 85 grain match burners. They aren't going as fast. They're on like 26 and change, but man, they shoot freaking good. I love
yeah.
those little heavies, but I think I might go a little bit lighter. But I did a custom barrel on it. But here's another thing that I didn't hit. One of the things, especially in hunting scenarios, is no one looks at their crown. What is the last thing your bullet touches on the rifle before it goes out? And that's your crown. A lot of people will put their crown down in their, my father-in-law, he does it
Yeah,
all the time. He'll shove his crown down in the floorboard.
drives you
There's no
nuts.
there's no break on it. If there's no break on it, you're really freaking gonna hammer it. Because on a break, the break's gonna hold it apart. And then a lot of times, like I had a guy send me a rifle the other day. He goes, "Dude, this thing doesn't shoot." And I took it apart. Holy shit! You could tell he hadn't taken his suppressor off in forever. The carbon around his
Oh yeah.
crown was horrendous. And I actually had to take and re-crown a little bit of it because it was so bad that it was starting to etch it. And not taking care of your crown is another big thing. Take your brake off, clean the heck out of your crown very carefully. Don't ding it. Don't take 60 grit sandpaper to it, but go through with a Scotch Brite or something. Just very carefully clean everything, because that is one of the last things that it touches. Another thing that I've seen in a lot of less expensive rifles is the contact in the barrel channel. People don't look at
Hmm.
that. One thing that I like to do is I'll take a dollar bill, I'll just set it there, and I'll run the dollar bill and make sure there's no contact all the way up it. I've had a couple customers call me, dude, I can't get this thing to shoot, and I walk through that with them, and they're like, oh shit, it's touching. No wonder I can't. So when they load it, or depending on the bipod,
That's big too.
the big one that I've seen it the most with were those Remington had them on there. What the heck name was that stock? It was that rubber one. You know which one I'm talking about? It had a rubber overmold on it.
The Hogue
Uh,
ones.
the Hogue, yes.
Yeah,
Holy shit, they were horrible. Like
they'd flex like
they
crazy.
flex so bad. And
Hmm.
that's what's nice about like the KRG Bravos and the XRS is it's the XRS from MDT, right? Some of
Yep.
those that have the more rigid forend on them.
Yeah,
Uh,
all aluminum. Yep.
yeah, to give that rigidity. Do you want to hit real quick on that flexing and the loading on the bipod?
So there's a bunch of cheap um, factory stocks, like, yeah, you might have got a good deal on that, and it might be free floating, like when it's just like in your hands. But as soon so there's two things that happen. As soon as you load that bipod, it'll wiggle around, and you can actually change point of impact by doing that, how you load it. And then two, what people don't realize that under recoil, a lot of times that barrel will slap, and most of the time it'll slap down or slap one of the sides, depending on how you interface the rifle, how that recoil pushes back on you, and it'll actually, as the bullet's traveling down, it's like it's banging onto the stock. So a rigid stock improves accuracy like crazy, just because you're taking that element out of it. So if you can take a plastic stock or whatever stock you're on and apply light pressure against the barrel and the stock in your hand and the forend, and it touches, chances are that stock is going to interface to that barrel in a negative way. So, and I
Mhm.
saw it for years with the cheap stuff. I mean, you go to Walmart and buy a Savage off the shelf, like you can pretty much just, it feels like cardboard against that barrel. So
Right.
yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. And then you get that bipod, and a lot of people, some people will lean into the rifle and load it. Other people will lean off the rifle. And I've seen that a lot of times where I'll shoot and I get, it's hitting point like dead center. And then somebody else gets me on the same rifle and they load into it super hard and it's shooting off
Mhm.
and up to the right. And you've got to understand your rifle too to that point. A lot of times, the first few shots, I'll just let it sit on a sandbag and kind of recoil into my shoulder. I don't
Yeah,
load
pretty
it.
neutral. Yeah.
Yeah, just to try and see what it's doing.
That's
And then
that's ARs. People don't realize that about ARs. I shoot ARs neutral. That thing's actually moving around a bit in my shoulder pocket. I'm gripping pretty hard on my hand, but I'm not forcing into that thing, loading into it or pressing down or anything, shooting positionally, because you can
Mhm,
actually make that sucker walk around. The Seekins for an off-the-shelf rifle, I think their design is the best. The way the barrel goes in and the nut goes over it, and like every in the rail and the upper is a big beefy joint, and so there's minimal flex there. You can still get it to change though a couple tenths. So if you're in a bipod and you load into it, you can change that point of impact a couple tenths. um, and people don't realize that, and so is how you
mhm,
interface to that rifle. So and a lot of times when I'm doing load development, on my match bolt actions, I am really light on everything. I'm kind of hanging onto that thing, minimal interface, and just sending it, watching where it's sent, and then just repeating that. So I, that's and then that makes me feel a little better about where that bullet's going too, because I know I'm not influencing that rifle or forcing it.
mhm, mhm. Yeah, 100%. Everybody's like, "Oh, I gotta lean into it. I'm gonna hold it, and I'm not gonna let it move." And I'm like, "No, if you understand recoil management and you let it recoil straight back, you can still watch the impact.
Hmm.
You don't have to be laying on it to do that. And good shooters I've seen, we could get into that whole debate of what do they call it?
Free recoil.
Free recoil, just letting it come off. But I still love to, just make sure I see where that impact goes. That was a big thing when I first started shooting, is I didn't understand that I needed to follow through and watch that before I try to run a bolt or anything again. And with ARs, it's a little different because you're not having to try and reach up and run everything. But it should give you more time to, follow through on your shot and make your adjustment and everything. But I'm trying to think what else we could do with the tolerance stacking. I mean, here's the thing: if your scope's bad, which is one of those hard things, if you go through all the rest of your stack and it's not bad, but you're getting flyers everywhere, throw a different scope on it real quick and check it. But that is, why in a lot of cases when I get a brand new scope, you either do the box test, you do a couple little tests with it to see if it's tracking right. Because those little springs holding that all together, sometimes they just don't work right, even with the top tier stuff. You can send it back. But
Yeah.
what else we got? Anything on tolerance stacking?
I think I'm pretty good. I think, like in my case for the gasket thing, just realistic expectations. You have to
Hmm.
have, like, not every rifle is a quarter minute rifle. Hardly any are like consistently quarter minute rifles. Those that are rare as hen's teeth. And when you have something that shoots consistently that good over the span of its barrel life, like that's just the rarity. And cherish that one, because that's not normal.
Hmm.
So realistic expectations, and yeah, don't paste or don't post false groups on social media. But we already covered that a while ago.
Oh,
So
sweet baby. Yeah, let's not go down that one. My hell, we're constantly sending emails or texts back and forth. Like, did you see this shit? Like, yeah.
it's pretty
Can
good.
we say
Yeah, I
something?
thought the same thing.
No. I don't know if we should say anything. We'll hurt their feel bads. But yeah, yeah. Yeah, quit trying to lie because everybody can see through it. Oh, so and so, this brand new rifle company built this and it's shooting 0.001s, 0.005s. Yeah, you're full of shit. It
Yeah.
is what it is. I've seen that once in my life, and I don't know how the hell it's one of the, I don't know. Well, if we can figure out how to make rifles shoot like that, we're all going to be freaking just
Well,
great.
if you figure it out, then you're going to be the one that's going to be making all the money.
But that comes back to tolerance stack between the action, the barrel, the stock,
Everything.
everything. I mean, everything has to be perfect between all of those. Like the stars have to align, the Mayan calendar comes up, and your rifle is the one that shoots 0.04s instead of 0.4s, 0.04s. Like that's
Yeah.
yeah.
Nope.
I don't even know how the hell you'd measure that accurately.
Yeah, I don't know. The bench rest guys have that method figured out, but I'm not sure. I don't shoot bench rest, so I couldn't tell you.
No, those guys, and that's a whole nother level of shit going on there, man. That's yeah. We won't go down that road. Those guys, I mean, they throw barrels away that still shoot, you know,
Yeah,
point one,
ridiculously
point
good.
two. Yeah,
Yeah.
they throw them away, and I'm like, give them to me. I'll take one. I know what it shoots. Just give me your load. I'll shoot it all day long till it
Yeah,
burns
no
out.
shit.
Well, then that's a whole nother level. But anyway, thanks everybody for listening. At the end, let's hit real quick. Silencer Central. Appreciate them. Their Banish, their Banish series are awesome. I love their freaking cans. I've got a few of them now. If you're a hunter, the Banish Backcountry is solid as they come. Cool little compact ultralight can. The 30 series is awesome. I've got a couple of them, and no matter what you're getting from them, and you can also get Silencer Co. and a couple other brands through them too. And you can do their online portal. They send you all the paperwork. You do it, you send it back, and you don't have to do anything. They ship you the suppressors right to your house, which is
And
phenomenal.
they do the trust thing too, right?
Yeah, they do
Yeah.
everything. Yep,
Yeah, I
everything.
have to do that. I need to go through them to get the trust set up
Yep,
because yeah,
I have a trust set up, and then they also will defer payments. So
that's
if
great.
over the time you're waiting for your can, they'll give you like 4 payments and they're interest free. So yeah, it's phenomenal. It's a cool system.
Yeah.
Um, and then Utah Air Guns, of course. We've got to get with these guys and get some freaking range time. When it gets a little warmer up here, maybe we just need to bring him to freaking Vegas, and then it's warmer.
Hey,
I
70 degrees today.
I hate freaking Vegas though. I just have such a hard time. Maybe where you live's better. I'm just used to the
It
strip.
is.
Can't stand it. But
No, no, no. I live north.
oh, you live in North Vegas?
Oh yeah, very north. The northest part of Vegas.
So you can see Nellis from your house?
No, I'm past that. I'm way up there. That's the ghetto.
You're past? Oh,
Oh,
you're
way north. I'm telling you. I'll send you a link. I'll show you exactly where I live. And you're
all
like,
right.
wow, there's houses up there now. Yep.
There's house. Dude, we shoot at that law enforcement range every year before shot. Dude, there are some
Yeah.
coyotes out there. You got coyote problems?
I don't. I haven't seen any since I've been here, but I'd love to.
Oh,
I'd
there's
love to see them
coyotes
through a
out
scope.
there. There's coyotes out there. Trust me. They're freaking all over out there. Out on the other side of Nellis, they're all over the place. I
Yeah.
didn't tell that to anybody. No one knows that. You didn't hear that. Take it away from your mind so I can go shoot them. Anyway, thanks for joining us. Of course, leave feedback. If you're listening on Apple, whatever you're listening on, give us a review because it's free. It's easy to do. Takes only a second. Make sure you're signed up to get notifications when the new episodes come out because you're going to start getting more and more of them. And hopefully you'll enjoy every one of them. So, and of course, if you got questions, ask. Thanks for listening, everybody. Until next time, get out there and shoot. Thanks.